God isn't a mystery to be solved. He's a person to get to know. And how we approach this person will chart the course of our journey with him. As we embark, there's a diverging path. On one end of the path is uncertainty. Uncertainty invokes fear, it causes a hesitation, it leaves a stalling in an inferior reality. But on the other end of the path is curiosity. And curiosity, it causes an exploration, a wonder, and a dive into what actually is. You see, Jesus is the full image of the invisible God. We don't have to be uncertain of him. It's time to approach him in the full expanse of our curiosity. Without any hesitation, the adventure of a lifetime is waiting for us in the person of Jesus. This is our task at hand, to approach him in the fullness of our curiosity. My name's Garrett, and join me today as we go beyond the veil. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil. This is a podcast where we just talk about what it looks like to utilize the full access that we have to God in every day, in every moment, in every situation, what that looks like and how we can do it. So we do a season format where we have a bigger, larger theme that we go over, and then we break it down into some episodes. And so this season's theme is recovering the face. And what I mean by that is the idea of the face is the presence of God. It's the face-to-face, the ability to connect with him. And so in this modern world and the rut of things when we're doing life, it seems difficult to connect, to be in that face-to-face encounter. And so we want to recover that. We want to figure out what will it take to get there. And so last week we talked about the fact that it's not a rule book, it's a narrative. And so the journey of humanity, the journey of faith in our personal life, it's not about a set of rules that we have to check off, but it's about a narrative of God restoring us to him. And so that's the approach that we want to take. We want to approach it like a narrative, a story that's unfolding before us. And so, without further ado, this week's topic is something that this week's topic is something that I'm very passionate about. It's going from the investigator to the adventurer. And so, we'll definitely get right into it, but first I want to lay some framework for you. The defining trait of the investigator is uncertainty. Uncertainty is the defining trait of the investigator. The adventurer's defining trait is curiosity. Curiosity is the defining trait of the adventurer. And so let's just define what uncertainty and curiosity are so that we're clear moving forward what I mean. Uncertainty is because I do not know, I do not explore. And curiosity is because I do not know, I do explore. And so how we approach our faith, how we approach our connection to God, how we approach our experience of God is going to be drastically different depending on how we approach what we do not know. If we hide or stall or sit where we're at because we're uncertain, we're going to find that there's a lot left on the table for us. But if we approach in curiosity, everything's on the table, everything's available. And so we want to approach it with curiosity. And so, we'll be getting into a couple of points about what this looks like to go from this investigative perspective to the adventure perspective. And so the investigator is point number one. Here's the problem with the investigator. And I know what you're thinking. I know that what's wrong with someone that's trying to get the answers? Well, here's the thing about the investigator. Even if they end up at the right answer, they can't be right, because if one thing along the way is wrong, the whole thing's wrong. And even if you get all the things right along the way, you can still be wrong. You can be absolutely right and be wrong. And here's the point I'm making, that it's not about what you do and what you achieve. It's about the place that you end up in, the position you end up in with God. And so even the Pharisees would, by all appearances, check the boxes of the law, and yet they're the ones scolded because they didn't meet the heart condition. Their desires, what they're after, didn't land, and so they actually fell short of what the actual aim is: connection. And so, because the point of collecting the data, the point of seeing the evidence, is that love doesn't have to prove itself. So the evidence they're collecting, the story we're trying to conceive, it's not about love proving itself, but it's about giving an unimpeded connection, unimpeded even by our need to secure ourselves with enough knowledge. And so, as the evidence lays before the investigator, they collect it. They try to figure out, what can I do for it? What can I understand? While the opposing view would say, hey, I am not worried about what the evidence says. I'm more worried about what this means for me. And so as God reveals himself, as he shows himself, he reveals his love, and that's the point. That's always the point. And if we miss it, it doesn't matter how much evidence we get together. And so when I say that the point is unimpeded connection, even by our need to secure ourselves with enough knowledge, I'm talking about insecurity. And not insecurity in the superficial way, but rather our relationship with God. Do we feel secure? Do we feel like he's safe? Do we feel like we can approach him? And if the answer is yes, then that changes everything. And so the investigator would like to think that they have all the answers. And have you ever met someone or have someone in your life that's close to you, and you have problems, you have things you're going through, we all do. But the way they approach your situations are usually full of solutions. And the truth is, they're usually the right solutions. But when they gave it to you, it made you feel more alone and further away from a resolution. And maybe you've been that person. Maybe you're the person giving all the solutions, and you walk away going, man, I don't know if that really helped, but I knew everything I said was right. It's because it's not always about the solution. It's not always about the answers. It's about connection. It's about feeling compassion. It's about understanding. And so the investigator falls short with all the right answers because it misses the point. And so the investigator is searching for a conclusion when the solution is the perpetual presence of God. It's not a matter of circumstances being in order. It's a matter of you being in completion, that of which happens in the person of Christ. The question is, what really matters? There's people who spend their whole life studying Scripture, and they're no closer. There's people that live a very good life, and they're no closer. The point is the approach. And the investigative approach is one of distance, and it can be all right and still wrong. And so what's my point to all this? You have to go no further than him. It's not an uncertainty of what he is like. It's a curiosity of the depth of which he is. We know that he is love. Now, what are the depths of love? That's the question that should be burning in our hearts. And so that's the investigator. The adventurer is different. Like we said, their driving trait is curiosity, which is because I don't know, I do explore. The adventurer is enamored with the journey of discovery, not for the purpose of information, but the purpose of connection. So they're enamored with the journey of discovery, not for the purpose of information, but for the purpose of connection. That answers the question of what really matters, what's meaningful, what's valuable. As an adventurer, you can mess up all along the way and still get it right. And it's a radical difference, right? Of the person who's an investigator and they get all the answers right and they're still wrong versus the person who gets everything wrong and they still get it right. So we're not interested even about this, what the numbers add up to, what the solution is on the end of the equation. It's not even about the equation. It's not about the solution. It's not about the answer. It's about connection. The fact that you can just sit with someone and feel close. Here's what happens when you become an adventurer with God. You find yourself secure because you know who you are. You find yourself free because you know who you belong to. And you find yourself with fullness of life wider than your imagination because Jesus came to give life and life to the full. My question is this: how wide is your imagination? How far are you willing to go? And this might be correlated with how much you're willing to be still. How much you're willing not to have to fight for things on your own. How much you feel safe with God. Do you trust Him? Will He meet every need? Will He be there when you need Him? Is He waiting to punish you if you slip up once? And if you can find yourself secure with God, your imagination can go absolutely wild. Because it's all available. There's no withholding. There's no keeping from you. And as you approach with imagination, you begin to realize He's better than you could ever imagine. And so that's what's available for the adventurer. The adventurer has this mantra: I refuse to escape or hide. The adventurer has this mantra that I refuse to escape or hide. It means I won't run away when things get hard. I won't run away when I get scared or I'm uncertain of what's in front of me. And I won't hide out of fear, and I won't hide from what's in front of me. But rather, I want to be discovered as I discover God. That I want to be discovered as I discover God. There's this mutual exchange happening. And as He discovers you, you get to be found in Him. So I don't want to escape into other things. At the depths of God that are being revealed, the depth of you is being illuminated and discovered consequently. Our seeking Him in curiosity is the invitation for Him to search us. So as we approach Him with curiosity, as we get to say, how big are you? Are you bigger than my imagination? Are you better than what I could ever hope for? What begins to happen is He begins to reveal what's on the inside of you. All it takes is a flicker of adventure, and He takes you on the whole journey of discovery. You get to begin to learn what the image of God built into you really means. You get to learn what the calling on your life really is, but you get to learn, most importantly, what He thinks of you. That's the bottom line. That's what this is all about. It's what He thinks about you. If we can just capture that, that's the thing that will take you to any place, anywhere that He is waiting for you. And so what do you realize as He searches you? That He's the desire. He's the thing you're after. All those other needs were never met without Him. And yet He's the one thing that met them all. And so the call is not to simply look for exciting external path of adventure, but even more so to go deep to the interior of our being. To go to the interior of our being, to go the depths of who we are, and to see God waiting there. To see what He originally meant for us, to see what His desire for us is. As we realize He's our desire, we get to realize what His desire for us is. And so that's what's waiting for us as adventurers. So point number one is what is the investigator? Point number two is what's the adventurer? And now that we know the adventurer is enamored with the journey and the investigator is just worried about lining the facts up, we can go, okay, point number three, how do we become enamored with the journey? So we'll take a second just to once again contrast the two. The investigator is a type of academic. The facts and solution grind you to get where you're going, all the while keeping connection at a distance because you're doing it on your own. You're doing it yourself. And they got this way because they thought that they weren't safe alone. I remember a time when I felt like I just didn't trust God, and I recognized that's what the feeling was, and it wasn't always the active thought, but it was influencing my decisions. And when I realized this, I asked God this question: what do I need to know to trust you more? And he said this to me. He said, you think you're safer alone. And it absolutely broke my heart, because while that's true a lot of times in my natural relationships, I'm afraid to share and open up and be vulnerable, it meant everything to my relationship with God because it kept him at a distance. It said, you're not welcome in here because I can do it on my own. I can protect myself. And what if I let you in, and what if I get hurt? And so when I realized this, it changed everything, because then it was, I can let him in. He's safe. And so the investigator is an academic trying to get where they're going by grinding and getting it together themselves. The adventurer, though, is different, and here's the main thing about them. They're a type of lover. So the investigator is a type of academic, but the adventurer is a type of the lover. It's actually the central characteristic of the lover to be an adventurer. They're willing to make absolute fools of themselves. They don't care what anyone else thinks when they are struck by the beauty of the one that they behold. They're willing to appear as fools before everyone else, when in fact they're deeply secure and confident in the one who loves them. You can go looking like a fool when you're confident in the one who loves you. And so as we receive God's love, as we see him for who he is, as we see the person of Jesus and his characteristics and how good he is, we recognize we can approach like an absolute fool, ready to do whatever, ready to go wherever, ready to say whatever it takes, just to express how we feel. Paul writes this in Ephesians 3. He says, I pray that you, having been rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with the measure of all the fullness of God. All the fullness of God. It's in the depths of his love. And then he writes this in Philippians, that he was so great in his Jewish walk, and that he did all the right things, and he knew all the stuff, but he considered it garbage compared to knowing the insurmountable worth of knowing Jesus. So the fullness of God, the knowledge there that surpasses all understanding, it's in his love, and everything else is garbage compared to knowing him. We can recognize value of things, but we have to recognize it's incomparable. There's nothing wrong with not knowing everything, and there's everything right with seeking a greater depth of knowledge. But the way in which we approach wanting to know more will determine if we can reconcile a verse with the experiential reality of the depths of love of God. This is the position in which your gaze makes a run towards him, rather than you turn away because you're terrified of what it might really be like. This is the position of embrace, to run towards him, knowing what he's really like. And so, just to review what we went over today about going from the investigator to the adventurer. The investigator's driving trait is uncertainty. It's because I do not know, I do not explore. And they find themselves trying to do things on their own, and it's about solutions, and it always leads away from connection. Meanwhile, the adventurer, their driving trait is curiosity. It's because I do not know that I do explore. And what causes a person to get here is just to experience the deep reality of God and his love. And as you experience the radical love that pursues you and pursues you and pursues you, you realize you have no other choice but to run towards him. And the final point about how do we get enamored with the journey, we realize that there's nothing more valuable than that. to have the embrace. And so, the final thought for you guys. Paul, the apostle, he goes to Athens, Greece, and he is asked to share in their assembly, which is where they go to talk about all the latest ideas of the day. And so he mentions, as he walked into Athens, what he noticed. He noticed a statue that was inscribed, "The Unknown God." And he tells them, "You're ignorant of the very thing you worship." All they talked about was something they did not know. And meanwhile, on the road to Emmaus, two men walk with Jesus, not realizing who he is, but they're captivated by him because their hearts burn to know him in their curiosity. They listened and walked with him until they realized they knew him all along. Could we choose to approach God this way, with a curiosity that supersedes our insecurities until we wholly feel secure in his passionate love for us? To not need to discuss ideas around God, but to approach him directly, to enter into the full embrace. That's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for listening. It's my hope and prayer that you become a deep adventurer this week. Make sure to check out the Instagram. It's Beyond the Veil _podcast. That's Beyond the Veil _podcast. I share reels, we share clips, we share information and some devotionals here and there. And so be sure to check that out. We also have a YouTube version of the podcast under the same name. And then, next week episode, we'll probably be looking at the pressure to conform. There's a lot of pressures to conform out there. And so we want to look at what that is causing to us and our perspective of God. Make sure to share this with a friend if it impacted you, who brought value to you. We'll make sure to bring value to as many people as possible through what we're doing here. Thanks for listening, and catch you next time.